In a lucid dream, half awake and half asleep, I dreamt I was staring at the sun. It was a comforting bright yellow, orange, red and white light, and it radiated over and over again. All is love. Everything else is an illusion. I woke to a darkened room with some anemic light filling through the blinds. As I lay back and closed my eyes, the sun gently reappeared, and its warmth flowed down my spine. All is love. Everything else is an illusion. These satellite images of Earth, courtesy of NASA's International Space Station, are intercut with footage I shot over the last year. How do we build a peaceful global village? Is this still a goofball question? Do I really sound like some beauty pageant contestant vainly wishing for world peace? I believe we are now in transition. A transition between the old oligarchical tyranny of empire in all its forms and the next stage of human evolution. Either we enter a new era of creativity, a third industrial green egalitarian revolution, a new science renaissance, or we fall into a totalitarian, post-industrial, dystopian nightmare world and the risk of all-out thermonuclear war. Eyes on the prize. Let's not blow it. Good planets are hard to find. Audiovisual welding is my media challenge to help expose the truth and to help foster and build that peaceful global village. This channel is my record to my children when they ask, "Hey Dad, what did you do during the great transition of the 21st century?" Yeah, we're in London. It's Friday. No, it's Thursday. What day is it?
Sorry, I didn't push record.
You didn't press record.
Can you just do it one more time?
It's Thursday. We're in the City of London. We are protesting outside of Goldman Sachs today against anti-capitalism, anti-globalization. We're trying to curb the excesses of this bizarre and unmediated form of globalization. These companies have way too much power, and personally I'd love to get rid of capitalism altogether. I believe there's better alternatives, such as the Mondragon experiment in Spain, where it's proven that worker cooperatives are superior to capitalist forms of business organisation on every level.
The hunger casino, profits to be made, lives to be lost. Even the police are behind us.
Profits to be made, lives to be lost.
Profits to be made,
lives to be lost.
Profits to be made,
Lives to be lost.
profits to be made.
Lives to be lost.
So we're here as activists from the World Development Movement and Occupy London to protest at Goldman Sachs' role in betting on food prices in financial markets, which is causing food price spikes and hunger around the world. Goldman Sachs and other banks are making huge profits from these activities, but they have to be stopped. Goldman Sachs, get your deals off our meals! 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 So in the last few years we've seen unprecedented global food crisis, and that's been accompanied by banks like Goldman Sachs pouring huge amounts of speculative money into these food markets. So they're betting on food prices, which for them can mean huge profits, but for people in developing countries and people in poverty in the UK and elsewhere, it's a catastrophe. People are facing malnutrition, they're going into debt, they're having to sell their assets like livestock or sacrifice education just to be able to afford food. So we need to massively curtail the role of banks like Goldman Sachs in these markets.
Take some recent examples. If you're talking about default, if you're talking about a country getting rid of its debt, I mean, this actually happens quite a lot. And the dirty secret about it, the thing the IMF won't tell you, is that actually countries that default on their debt, just say we can't pay it anymore, tend to do pretty well afterwards. Right? Argentina was the poster boy for the IMF throughout the entire 1990s. Did everything the IMF demanded, everything. Privatised everything that moved, you know, whacked up taxes on people's consumption, cut taxes for the rich, ended up in a dire economic situation, a really, really serious recession with massive debt. There's a whole series of debt crises there, culminating eventually in the collapse of the government in December 2001. So famous shots of the president at the time fleeing in classic fashion from his presidential palace by helicopter, whilst there's a big crowd outside in Buenos Aires. New government comes in and immediately just cancels its debt, just says we're not paying it. Now what happened to Argentina? Everyone predicts doom. Right, this is the end of the line, this is it. Actually now Argentina is the fastest growing economy in South America. So even on kind of conventional economic terms, it's not necessarily a disaster to do this sort of thing.
So those guys are being cattle. And apparently the excuse is that it's not an authorised demonstration. In democracies we should not need authorised demonstrations.
We had a working group this morning. It followed on from the meeting last night, where one of the people facilitating invited the police to come on the platform and give some kind of report back. It was completely unnecessary, and a lot of people were concerned because, you know, the police have a very bad record in relation to people of color, younger people, homeless people, sex workers. So the decisions, the proposals and ideas from our working group this morning were that, one, the FIP, who is the advanced information gathering police, they've been on site taking pictures of people, and we want them completely off the camp. We don't want them here at all. The second point was that this is a peaceful camp, and we're here to stop major crimes by corporations and governments. So we don't need the police in our meetings or in the camp. The third point is that any request from the police to come in should be filtered through, there's a committee that deals with that, so that if the police have a request, it's heard, but the police themselves don't have to come into the camp. People in the meeting this morning also described how at Dale Farm, which is it's a travelers camp on the outside of London, as we speak now, the police are there evicting people, and they're travelers. They face a lot of discrimination. They've made a big struggle for about 10 years to keep their camp. Yesterday, the police were there tasering people. You know, and these are the same police who are policing the camp. Not far from here, about half a mile away, a man named Ian Tomlinson was killed. He was walking home completely, you know, not part of a demonstration or anything. He was knocked down and killed by the police last year. A couple of months ago, Mark Duggan was shot down, killed by the police in Tottenham. There's still been no explanation of what happened, and in fact the police lied about what happened. Young people, especially people of color, are being stopped and searched all over London, are being fitted up for crimes they haven't done, and for all those reasons we just can't have the police in the camp, because those of us who are vulnerable will not feel safe. We also raise that people have to bear in mind, if they're having friendly conversations and chit-chatting with the police, that can put themselves and other people and the whole camp in danger.
There's no such thing as a little chat.
There's no such thing as an informal chat with the police. You know, they're here to gather information and to criminalize a whole set of people, and we just want all the camp to know that. Some people are aware and some people come here less aware. So part of our work as people of color is to convey that information to the people in the camp, to protect the camp, because we support it, because we're up against the wall in every way, including by the police. And we're also trying to make visible that the 99% is not only those of us here in Britain, but in other countries, Africa, India, Latin America. I mean, people who are struggling and working without wages. That is the real 99%. And we want to bring that, you know, people in Haiti, we want to bring all that into the occupation here so that we're stronger.
I've spoken to Hillary Clinton and the Council of Foreign Relations, and they have sent me a copy of US foreign policy, which I'm going to take home tonight and play. And the good thing about US foreign policy, like this game, you can kill hundreds and hundreds of people, including women and children, and it doesn't even matter! But anyway, I also brought a glow-in-the-dark condom. This is Love Light Techno-Sex. Glow-in-the-dark condom is a metaphor for WikiLeaks. Because although you might not be able to stop the penis of tyranny in the darkness, if WikiLeaks puts a glow-in-the-dark condom on it, at least you can move your ass out of the way.
I am not under arrest, although... And as you know, I am not charged with any offence in this country or any other. Under a new section used, people cannot wear masks in London, they cannot wear facial coverings in London, and that basic anonymity is denied to people. I say that sometimes it may be legitimate to deny that anonymity, but we should not accept it until Swiss bank accounts and offshore bank accounts are also denied of their anonymity. We cannot have the basic right to political speech, a long tradition in the United States and other countries, anonymous political pamphleting, which was part of the US Revolution and many others, denied to us because we must always show ourselves and our face, not to each other but to the state. So I ask that all of you demand that foreign bank accounts be opened up and made transparent.
Yes!
In the same way that I today have been forced to be made transparent.
Is there going to be a time when the members of Anonymous are going to be able to go to a rally without their masks?
Oh, I take my mask off.
Yeah, we take our mask off, but it's an idea.
It's not under here.
It's an idea. Yeah. I'll be wearing mine all day. but it's an idea, and it symbolises the idea. And at the same time, we can recognise each other. You know? So in this crowd, there's those ran on, so there's even more in the crowd, and you know, we're a family. You know?
It means you can support a cause, but not necessarily, unless you choose to, have your face put to it. Well, because if you choose not to, if you want to support a cause, but because it may affect your job, it may affect your livelihood, you might believe in something so strong. But it's a shame that people have to come to that now.
But do you hope that one day that you'll reach a point where that won't be necessary?
Oh, well, it will come. That day will come.
The system will crash soon. It will. And then once the system has crashed, therefore we have to rebuild it from scratch. The whole of society will have to be built from scratch. And then we have different values by that point.
I quite like the fact that I'm here and nobody really knows who I am. They know what I do.
Metropolitan Peace.
Yes, Metropolitan Peace. I work in the security industry. Yeah. I provide security and safety for people that need it.
So what brings you down to Occupy London?
What brings it down is just my own will, man. To just come and enjoy and see what is there. And for me to see what I can give. Just to enjoy. It's my friend Chris tell me about this thing going on. Yeah.
Beautiful. And you come down here to...
Well, I come down here and then all of a sudden I feel just to chill, you know. The vibes here make me grow, make me think. Me and my friend been talking and talking and talking. So I guess all these people here gathering because they're looking for, I guess, freedom. Yeah. And that's what I heard. They're looking for freedom. So yeah, man, may they find freedom. But me, I think freedom, you know, freedom will be there when, you know, you're not gonna ask for it. When a day people tired of boss, and then you're gonna go, instead of going to strike to organize a strike, but maybe he goes to the beach with his children and say, guys, let's go to the beach. You know, that's freedom. And another guy from that same company says, let me go and, yeah, guys, let's go and pick up some fruits in the forest, you know. That's when freedom is. But when freedom, you have to go and seek permission to demonstrate. Means no, you're not free. And the reason why people have a boss is because many people have a boss because most of us are trained to doubt in our own abilities to make ourselves survive. So we employ someone who we think we can blame when something goes wrong. So these are the people called the bosses. Yeah. So that's the thing. So people must take responsibility of his life, each and every one, or she life, her life, each and every one. Then they're gonna get freedom. If people seek freedom in ways which they're not gonna find freedom, they will always continue to look for freedom. They will always continue to look for freedom until they find a way, a proper way where you don't have to seek because you have it. Well, I don't know about occupation because we are already there.
Yeah.
So I don't know what is this occupying. This is the thing. But what I gather is that people looking for freedom and they think occupation is the way, yeah? But occupy what? They should occupy themselves.
Yeah.
Himself, each and every one, each and every man and woman occupy his self.
Somebody recently said it's hard to be free when the enemy has outposts in our minds. So yes, it starts
yeah, as well. That's the thing as well. When people realize that to have an enemy is a waste of time. You know, when you have an enemy, your life is pointless. Yeah, because really hatred does not exist. You know, it's something we have to see. That's the guy I hate, so I have to pretend now. Put my face. It's waste of energy. It doesn't really exist. You know, so there's no enemy, really. People wanna be free. Let's be free. Let's occupy ourselves, individual. Each and every one occupy himself, like we.
Beautiful.
Yeah, man.
I saw this documentary last night about these adrenaline junkies, skydivers, base jumpers and general hellraisers, and one of these base jumpers says something quite philosophical. He says, as a base jumper, imagine there are two jars in front of you. One is your luck jar, and the other is your experience jar. Everyone starts out with a full jar of luck and an empty jar of experience, but the more jumps you do, the more your experience jar fills up, while your luck jar empties. The point is, if you base jump enough times, you will eventually run out of luck, and all you will have left is your experience to guide you. The dinosaurs became extinct because they didn't have an Earth defense program. As of circa 2013, we already know of over 1 million rocks that could potentially collide with Earth. Apocalyptic rocks frequently hit planets in our solar system and fly perilously close across Earth's flight path. Only 1% of these rocks have had their orbits and trajectories calculated. Staggeringly, there is currently no Earth defense program in place and no plans to implement one. The science is largely left to amateur weekend enthusiasts and hobbyists with their backyard telescopes. We may get 2 to 4 weeks notice, not enough time to launch an offensive. Life on Earth is precarious, but paradoxically, there wouldn't be life on Earth without asteroids. We owe it to a 10-kilometer size asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. The impact threw dust and debris high into the atmosphere that cooled the climate and gave us warm-blooded mammals a chance to dominate the Earth. Billions of years before this, a galactic panspermia event seeded the building blocks of life throughout the universe. These ancient asteroids made of ice smashed into Earth and Mars nearly 4 billion years ago and furnished the planets with water and the other building blocks of life. The energy from these impacts was stored deep in the heavy iron core of the Earth. This latent energy occasionally escapes in the form of supervolcanoes. Supervolcanoes, killer asteroids, earthquakes, floods, tsunamis, killer virus pandemics, mega gamma ray bursts, and super solar flares are just some of the potentially apocalyptic phenomena we have made absolutely no plans for. These externalities are almost all invisible to our fragile culture until they happen. Yet we have the technology to deflect, minimize their effects and evacuate impact zones, but not the political will. It's not even on the agenda. Like the Romans, we are too busy with empire. With time, human life on Earth grows infinitely more fragile with the old empire, their institutions, and the oligarchical principle in place.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention please? I'd like to introduce you to Mr. David Buick, 49 years working in the City of London, and he's here to tell you why he thinks that Britain's bankers are absolutely brilliant. Man and boy in the City of London, he's a great supporter of British banks.
When Obama visited this country, the world politicians decided that it was possible to agree global regulation on banks. I've never heard such balderdash in all my life, because they've all got different criteria. Whereas if we'd got on with it, and we'd actually know that the playing field was level, I think you'd find the situation in terms of what banks are not lending would be a whole lot better than it is.
Why people like you are earning more than 25 times?
And the bonus?
More than 25 times.
Let's deal with the issue.
Do you think I have more? It's the same question. Do you think you deserve more than other people? You have better values than other people? You have more moral than other people? You have better education than other people? I don't think so. I don't think so.
So David, what are you saying that the banks actually do for Britain?
If anybody thinks, just look at that very smart tie that you're not wearing, whether it's your jacket or your shirt or what the rest of it. Everything emanates from a bank.
No, workers do that. Workers make it. The banks do.
Well, let him finish. Now, hang on. I'm happy to answer your question in a minute. Your lovely baby's hat not what you bought and where you borrowed it from. Some companies borrowed money from a bank in order to manufacture.
And paid the workers.
Democratic government allows the regulation.
How do you feel about an economy that works on our stripping our very limited resources to make things that we don't need to keep people in jobs as this planet gets more and more destroyed just to drive this economy? It's absolutely madness. I mean, in this country, none of our money is backed by gold or anything. The other countries are waking up to the fact that our money is worthless. We have hardly any resources in this country. People are going to turn around and look at us and go, get you know, like it's the way it
not
is.
BBC One, they're not. Not 7 o'clock at night.
We want something new, George. The financial sector generates £54 billion a year in terms of revenue for the taxman.
That's money that's spent on education, health,
How much of that is real wealth and how much of that is artificial wealth?
Well, it's
that we're going to
54
see disappear as the global wealth. Yes, which is likely to go down the tubes very soon.
That's real money.
It's not real money. Where?
I mean, what you guys are doing here today and have been doing for the last 4 days, believe me, that message is getting out all over the world. Just a minute, I haven't finished. The fact remains is now that if it was a question of no names, no pact drill, but if it were Lloyds or Royal Bank of Scotland or anybody can't meet its requirements, the only thing that should be protected is those people's money that's on deposit or in their account, and that goes to another bank. Let them go, and that is, I'm certain, the general thought process of everybody else.
Your economy is in fault. Health, education, that's are the important things. Your economy is crap, is based in consuming. This is the Romans used to say, bread and circus, and that's what you're giving us. Something that is superficial. What we need is health, education.
I would like to say that what David said just before is right. The banking system is just another industry. They fund everything that we buy. Everything is built, is manufactured on debt. It's not manufactured on real money. So banking, what banking does is they administer the money that central banks and the Fed create out of thin air, and this money is given to the banks. And the banks, who do banks give money to? To the owners of capital. Because that's the guarantee that the debt is going to be repaid. And who are these owners of capital that deserve receiving credit from the money that is created from thin air in central banks? This group is identified as 1% of the population. Yes. They own most of the capital in the world, and credit is given to them so that they can increase their capital in the future and manufacture all these things.
And they gave it. Okay, I have a very concrete question for you, because you're getting wrapped up in this money and regulators and who was at fault. Technological automation is replacing jobs very quickly. Sorry, technological automation is replacing jobs at the moment, and it has been forever. It's doubling every year. That's the rate, regardless of what financial system you have and what regulators you put in that place. So, without jobs as a basis for the economy, it's not really a question, more of a statement. Your system is going to be obsolete, and in fact, you're very lucky that you've been working this long, because you get to get out at the last floor. It's going away.
Yeah, but on the other side of the coin, I fear for my children.
Absolutely, absolutely. So why are you a fan of the banks then?
He means everybody's children.
Our children.
Well,
we've not yet all
basically. Why should we care about our children when our fathers didn't care about us?
We're never going to be able to look at them. You're welcome to say something if you want, but
we're all a lot poorer than we were. We've got unemployment rising from 2.5 million.
We're not all poorer. 1%
hang on. Are you going to let me speak or not?
It is factually incorrect to say we're all poorer.
George, if you interrupt everything, I've interviewed you, so I know.
So why I'm here, what's going on here? I really think this is, it sounds melodramatic, but this is the last great faint hope for life as we know it. What we have is converging crises, economic, social and ecological, and so many attempts to improve things, you know, to do with climate, for instance, that I've been involved with a lot, inevitably come up against global capital in one way or another. And this movement in 1,500 cities across the world, we're told, started in New York, which is the sort of the most central beating heart of the economic system, mirrored here in London, which is sort of number two, if not number one, is really, really important. You know, at every turn, democracy is hollowed out and co-opted by the economic system. You know, the question for anyone seeing this is, you know, why are you not inspired to be here? And if the answer is just because, you know, you don't see it as the kind of thing that, you know, is relevant for you, then, you know, why not? This is democracy. This is true democracy, and, you know, and it's messy, and who knows what's going to happen exactly. But, you know, unless we reoccupy the streets and actually fight for the obvious, sane, rational things. You know, even 3 years ago, you know, to a lot of people it was very clear that what was being done in response to the crisis was, you know, was crazy. It wasn't dealing with the issues. You know, the derivatives are still not being regulated, etc. But 3 years later, you know, we have the evidence. The only sector of society that has done better is the few at the top. We're being told that there's no money when there are between 20 and 40 trillion dollars in offshore accounts. You know, trillions goes through London, which effectively erodes the tax base across the world. And, you know, only a global democracy movement has any chance of tackling what is a global problem. And it's the global problem of democracy being transferred to very powerful, totally untransparent, totally undemocratic economic sectors. And, you know, it's really about, do we believe in a better world than this? You know, can we imagine another world that is possible? And that one phrase, un altro mundo es posible, another world is possible, that and un pueblo unido más será vencido, which is, you know, people united will never be divided, or will never be defeated, sorry. Those two simple lines have transformed to a significant extent 12 countries in South America. It's the belief that we can change things that's lacking most of all. Most of us, if you look at the polls, all the attempts to gauge public opinion, the vast majority agree that of course we shouldn't be prioritising bankers' bonuses over doctors, over nurses, over schools, the things we need for a decent society, you know, and a decent economy and a functioning world, you know. But the question is, are we prepared to stand up for what we believe in, you know? Are we prepared to take democracy back? Or are we going to be the good people, proverbially, who stand around and do nothing, which allows evil to flourish? And one thing it's really important to realise is that this movement is not about anger. It's not about destruction. It's about love and compassion. It's about thousands of people here and in 1,500 other cities across the world that, you know, have had enough of seeing politicians say the kind of thing that we want them to say and doing another, because powerful economic interests are pushing them into doing it, you know. And when Roosevelt sat down with union leaders in the 1930s and said, you know, he said to them, what do you want to happen now? And they told him what needed to happen. And this was, by the way, at the beginning of a 40-year period of global growth, the only one that capitalism has ever seen, pretty much without major crises. We've had 100 crises since 1980. What he said to those people is, go out and make it happen. You know, unless we, the people, push hard enough against the powerful economic interests, there's no way we're going to see the change that we need to see. And the crazy thing about our situation is that it's institutions that are the problem. You know, I have a friend who is an analyst for a hedge fund. You know, he's like right at the heart of kind of creaming off the system, you know. But he and many others in those positions want things to change. They don't feel empowered to have things change either. You know, it's recognising this is not about demonising a certain group of people. It's about recognising that we've allowed all sorts of institutions, you know, the so-called free market, which is not remotely free. It's not a free-floating thing. It's the result of powerful lobbying. We've allowed that to take over crucial democratic needs that we all have across the world. And bear in mind, you know, we may have had a bit of a recession in this country, and it's tough for some people, but people on the other side of the world are seeing it so much worse. And, you know, in terms of anyone watching this and thinking, oh well, you know, I don't want to get involved, you know, the police. You know, most people throughout most of history have faced far more in terms of the threat to them by standing up for what they believe in. You know, we, because of generations in the past that have fought for our rights, can come out here and, you know, be relatively fearless. You know, yes, the police might sometimes be inappropriate, but, you know, they're not going to drag us off in a van and we disappear. You know, that happens across the world, and people still fight for their rights. So, you know, let's do this.
As of circa 2012, walking through Barcelona, we are witnessing the coup d'etat of the IMF, the International Mafia Fund. Greece, Italy, Spain, Ireland have all already lost their sovereignty. They are now owned by the IMF. A country without sovereignty is a country under tyranny, the tyranny of the North Atlantic region corporate state empire and their fiat monetary system, an empire built on war, slavery, genocide. What the British Empire did to all the indigenous peoples of the New Worlds, the new elites are now prepared to do to their own citizens through anti-human austerity measures, debt, poverty, disease, food scarcity, and endless engineered wars and geopolitical conflicts. We have been stupefied by the oligarchs and conned into believing in the illusion of democracy and that we in the West are civilized and that the age of empire is over. The whole North Atlantic Anglo-American Empire is as corrupt as Nero's Rome, and like Emperor Nero's Rome, it has no future, unless it turns us all into powerless, obedient slaves. For the love of all things sacred, and in the spirit of the Occupy movement, let's finally write off 5,000 years of empire and the oligarchical principle as a childhood disease, starting by dismantling these psychopathic institutions like the British monarchy, the Federal Reserve, the military-industrial complex, the banking cartels, the Vatican, Big Pharma, Monsanto, and hold the corporate state and all their criminals in government to account with the rule of law. Only then can we transition to that peaceful global village. Let's allow our past to make us better, not bitter. Global education and industrial scale engineering projects will create long-term global stability and local resilience, bringing the nations of the world closer together, putting an end to empire and the oligarchical principle for all time, never to return. Goodbye, Brutish Empire. Hello, Third Industrial, Green, Egalitarian Revolution. I wanted to make a film about human creativity, the greatest force in the universe that we know of, and how we build a peaceful global village. No Hollywood sci-fi cliches, I promise. It would be an anti-sci-fi film about how wonderful the future could be and how we learn to manage the solar system. It would go something like this.
The year is 2112, and the world is almost unrecognizable to the world of circa 2012, yet very similar in other ways. This morning the sun rose and the first piece of land it moved over was the Chatham Islands in the Pacific Ocean, then New Zealand, Australia, Asia, Europe and Africa, the Atlantic Ocean and then the Americas, before finally moving swiftly up over the tundra, towards Alaska, where our story starts. Standing on the top of Mount Denali, meaning the Great One of the highest mountain ridges in Alaska, Dudie-Numbskull and Craterface said nothing to each other, while they strapped themselves into their snowboards. The morning air was still and crisp, and the piece perfect for a descent, with the scramjet hovering in autopilot mode just out of earshot, ready to pick them up at the bottom of the mountain. The boys looked at each other, both beaming with excitement. "Let's do this great thing," cheered Dudie-Numbskull. And with that, both teenagers saluted each other with their trademark Native American-influenced, fist-on-heart action. Then they both pushed gently forward on their front foot, and fell into the mountain. This trip to Alaska was part of their end-of-school assignment, and they would be evaluated by the video content captured by their life logging systems. These expeditions are part of their orientation residencies, before they choose their next field of study. They were going to school in the year 2112. Both teenagers are 17 years old, and curriculum activities for their final year in high school include 1. Deep-sea diving expeditions surveying the bluefin tuna migration around the atoll of Barda, India, between Mozambique and Madagascar. The atoll is of one of the richest areas for scuba diving, and the breeding ground for bluefin tuna, sailfish, marlin, whale and dolphins. 2. A polar expedition, where they visit the food and sea banks on the island of Svalbard, off Norway in the Arctic Circle. Excess food surplus is dehydrated and stored in the North and South Arctic regions for emergency, and to capture and reduce carbon in the atmosphere. As of circa 2112, the Earth had been restored to its former glory post-Ice Age, circa 10,000 BCE, and covered by extensive man-made global waterways. These canals worked like arteries connecting garden cities, while creating hydropower, irrigation for farming and transportation. These garden cities are connected by high-speed maglev trains, 10 meters off the ground, and encased in glass tubes with an induced vacuum to remove air resistance for energy efficiency. A flywheel mechanism catches and stores much of the energy lost due to braking. Humans have finally learned to live in accordance with nature and their technology. Humans in this future have the luxury to dedicate their entire lives to bettering themselves in whichever field they choose. There are no centralized governments, no migration controls or money. War and poverty are relics of the past. But it is no utopia, because any utopia is by definition a nightmare dystopia. There will always be forces to overcome. We have just began extensive space exploration. There are bases on the moon, a city is being built on Mars, and we are beginning to venture further out with successful, manned missions to Saturn and Jupiter, with the specific focus on their unique moons. We have established that rudimentary life is ubiquitous in the universe, but we have not made contact with advanced civilizations. Not yet. After just 100 years in space, humans had finally cracked interstellar travel. We could now travel at half the speed of light using thermonuclear fusion. The same technology that almost destroyed the planet was now being used to find new habitable exoplanets. Probes have been sent throughout the galaxy at half the speed of light, relaying back to us a lexicon of Earth-like cousins. These Earth-like cousins are exoplanets in the habitable, Goldilocks mild zone. We now know of thousands of exoplanets, similar to Earth, with oceans and vegetation, and even some with fossil records of complex life forms. But we are still gathering data. The abundance of exoplanets, and the vast distances, mean we are having a hard time choosing which ones to focus on. And our knowledge of the universe is limited by the production of thermonuclear probes. With limited materials on Earth, we are mining our own moon and nearby asteroids for their precious resources, like titanium, gold and diamonds for industrial use. With such vast distances, data from these probes can take 20 to 40 years to be relayed back to Earth, plus the 20 to 40 years it takes to travel to our nearest neighbor solar systems. Data from these interstellar reconnaissance missions is coming in all the time. Using quantum supercomputers, universities and organizations like NASA work together towards understanding vast amounts of data via these probes. In 2072, a group of 505 explorers, traveling in 3 identical spaceships, disillusioned with the moral decay and directionlessness of Earth, chose to cut the umbilical cord with Earth and explore the universe. And so, these pioneers left Earth for the nearest cluster of Earth-like cousins in a neighboring solar system. 7 planets within the Goldilocks zone of a Sunday 1,000 times bigger than our own Sun, was their rendezvous point. The explorers were chosen from 100,000 volunteers, and the number of 505 was agreed upon, as it would take at the very least 500 humans to carry the entire diversity of the human race. Volunteers were chosen at random, with the only prerequisite being genetic variation and diversity. The explorers were put into a deep sleep for 20 years by a newly developed, and as yet untested technology, and hopefully would be fully revived on arrival. We wouldn't know whether they made it until 20 years later. Any rescue mission would be a 60-year round trip, 20 years to receive the distress signal, 20 years to get there, and a further 20 years to travel back to Earth, even at half the speed of light. Intermittent communications over the years had reported that they were on schedule, and all life systems were well. We were expecting news by the end of the year about their safe arrival. It had been 40 years since they left Earth, and the explorers would only have aged a few months at the most, upon awakening. Our teenagers D and C, as we will now call them, don't know it yet, but they will soon be off to this neighboring galaxy to join these explorers for their next field of study.